we're gonna talk The Dig, the Simon Stone movie. He hasn't really made a lot of feature films.
Theater director,
Yeah,
primarily.
yeah. He made The Daughter back in 2015, but this is really the first big movie he's made since then. Starring Carey Mulligan, Ray Fiennes, Lily Allen. Pretty stacked cast. Dave,
Hey, Lily Allen.
did I just say Lily Allen?
Lily James.
Lily James,
Who's
jeez,
Lily
Lily
Allen?
Allen. She was a singer from the 2000s. Oh God,
You didn't even say
uh,
Lily Collins.
oh God. Um, sorry. So yeah, sorry, Lily James. Um, Dave, break us down this movie a little bit. What's like the plot, the driving force here?
Yeah. Yeah. It's we're on the eve of World War II, like really breaking out, 1939 in Suffolk, England, which is like east towards the coast from London and Cambridge, like the lower east part of London,
Mhm.
by France. And Carrie Mulligan plays a landed wealthy widow, and on her large estate are these mounds in the field, and she's wanted to get them excavated and looked into. Maybe there's cool things to find in there. And she gets Ray Fiennes' character Basil Brown, who's a archaeologist, excuse me,
Mhm.
slash excavator, to go digging, go find stuff out. And sure enough, they find a Anglo-Saxon burial ship, which this is based on a true story called the Sutton Hoo find.
Mhm.
And then from there, we kind of get the push pull of who gets to control the dig, as well as whether they can pull this off as World War II is about to break out and priorities change and side characters come in and out of the film. But it's kind of like a sweeping period film, in the English countryside. It definitely looks the part. Get two really good actors at the top, at least. And yeah, this was a movie. This came out on Netflix. I really didn't know much about it. I just knew it was coming out, and I was like, oh, I'll watch Carrie Mulligan again. She was really good and promising young woman. Why not? She's always good,
Yeah.
and she was good in this. I kind of wish we got more of her.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I would really knock this movie for is I feel like it's a lot of Ray Fiennes when I kind of wanted just more of all the other characters. And the movie also kind of changes up in a way,
Yeah,
and becomes like a kind of a different movie. And it's funny because I unfortunately wasn't able to watch this in one fell swoop, and I kind of like stopped it right before the change. So when I started watching it, I was
it
like, "Did
is.
I
It
miss
is
something?"
stark.
Yeah, and really, it's when Lily James's character comes in
Hmm.
as part of like the expanded excavation
Yeah,
efforts, and
from
they say in
British
the
Museum
movie,
takes over the dig, and more people
yes,
come into the fold.
thank you, and they say they bring on Peggy, Lily's character, because she's light, so she's not going to fall through, which is funny because then she does end up falling through at one point, but uh, it's just interesting because Peggy Pigot was like a pretty well established archaeologist by this point, so like to like bring her on for that reason and not just be like, yeah, we're bringing her on because she's great, just feels like such a strange choice. And then they pretty quickly just make her like this like romantic sex object within the movie,
Yeah,
and I'm like, okay.
she tends to be doing this role a lot, doesn't she?
Yeah, and it doesn't like I think I'm not necessarily knocking Lily James for it, but I'm wondering more like why they felt like they needed to frame the character in this
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, no, absolutely. Because as you said, the second half of the film, right, as the dig is about to bear fruit, which is like they actually find like the treasure that was buried with this Anglo-Saxon king. And I was reading a blog post put out by the British Museum talking about the movie, and they're very happy with this. And I think some of the people from the museum like visited the set, and people from the movie went to the museum and looked at the artifacts and stuff. So it seems to be pretty period detail, releasing the broad strokes. Obviously, there's dramatic license, but the museum was saying that it's kind of interesting that the way they changed that focus. And I think Lily James' character kind of showing up, and as you said, becoming this romantic figure. We get this whole romantic side plot with Carrie Mulligan's character's cousin, played by Johnny Flynn, and then you get this like moment of conflict when a train RAF training pilot crashes and his plane into the channel or whatever, and it's like, what was this? I thought we were in this like cerebral archaeology movie with Carey Mulligan and Ray Fiennes. What is all this for? You know,
Yeah,
it just really like threw me for a loop. Not that I thought it was bad uh or distracting, but it just felt like it was from a different like
movie.
object. Like the main mission of the movie just be completely detoured with this stuff. You know?
Yeah, the plane crashing is like a very interesting choice because it really moves like Rory, who's played by Johnny Flynn, like his character forward. It's like, oh, I need to like join the British Air Force and take up the fight now, and that's kind of impending because I think shortly after or as the movie's ending, King George is signing the decree that
Yes.
everybody needs to
Yeah.
enlist. But like why that became like a major part of this story where like you had this very nice and I feel like pretty fascinating relationship between Ray Fiennes and Carrie Mulligan, this
Yeah.
widowed person who has a son and is also experiencing health complications of her own. And Ray Fiennes is this archaeologist who never really got the credit he needed or maybe deserved, and seems like he's not totally interested in his own marriage and how they kind of are like finding purpose with each other in different ways. It was just
Yeah.
like you have a movie there. You don't need to add this this C plot in.
Right.
I don't know. Just it felt weird, but I didn't hate it either. Like I was kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is interesting.
I mean, I thought there was more meat on the bone with like the drama regarding the dig itself. Like originally, you have the local like Ipswich Museum trying to like step on Basil Brown and take over, and then once they realize it's of a great magnitude, this find, the British Museum, and like the government's sake, like basically like comes in, and then like there's like touches of like the guy from the British Museum's touches of like classist critique, and like he's like rubbing his raising his nose to
Hmm.
Brown in the process, and like they just kind of touch on it. It's all really subtle. I thought there's a lot more there. It's
Yeah,
like, and like they kind of just drop all that for the most part, and like Brown just kind of goes with the dig and gets to still oversee it, even though he's not really in charge. And then there's a few comments at that toast about where Mulligan's gonna give the stuff, and that's kind of it. Like again, there was more movie there, but
yeah,
like we got this romantic side plot, and like, and again, like it's not that I disliked it. I actually really like one of their touches where like they don't do the deed when they first,
hmm,
embrace Johnny Flynn and Lily James. They don't. And I'm like, oh fuck. And now he's gonna go to war and they're not gonna consummate. Oh no. I like this. But then
yep.
nah, they get it on before he
Yeah.
goes.
Outside in like a dilapidated old building, just like,
Yeah.
damn,
I mean, like
really.
it was like a really nice sunset. Like that was actually like romantic as fuck, not gonna
Oh,
lie.
it was.
And I guess it's paid off in a sense because they make you wait for it.
Hmm.
But it was just a strange choice, like I believe this movie is based off a book about the dig,
Hmm.
and but I have to imagine this was some of that dramatic license because, like you
For
said,
sure.
the Peggy character uh is that wait is Peggy who's Peggy? Yeah,
Peggy is Lily James.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The Peggy character, as you said, is like an accomplished
Yeah.
person who's qualified to be there, not just kind of like this greenhorn
Hmm.
wife of a fellow excavator. Like, so there were some choices made there, but
For sure.
dig
You know,
still pretty good.
it was funny when the British Museum guy came in. He's like, we're just gonna claim this for ourselves, and I was like, oh, that's a very British museum. Like, this is definitely quite accurate to frame them in this way.
Yeah.
Although apparently also a creative license, which I'm not sure why they cast Ken Stott as Charles Phillips from the British Museum, and Ken Stott's like in his 60s, but Charles Phillips in this whole thing was like 35 years old.
Huh,
He was very
that's
young,
funny.
so
Yeah.
interesting like how they kind of like put people in those roles
Well,
for.
the biggest one would be Carey Mulligan was not the first choice to
Yes.
play the widow, of course.
Who was that, Dave?
Nicole Kidman.
Hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, apparently in real life, the widow is older than Basil Brown. And yet now we totally flip it like Hollywood's want to do. And Carey Mulligan's what, 30 years, 25 years younger than Ray Fiennes? However old Ray Fiennes is. I don't know.
Yeah, let's
Like
see,
Carey Mulligan's in her early 30s. Definitely a little younger than Nicole Kidman,
yeah, 30 years between them.
Right.
Yikes. um Yeah, I guess like this is a movie I would definitely recommend. I think it's really well shot. I think there's a lot of like interesting stuff going on. I think kind of going back to like what were they trying to say with a lot of it. I think they're trying to say a lot, and I think that detracts a little bit from the movie. Like we've kind of harped on. They make some interesting choices with the direction of the movie at points, but
Mhm.
overall, like if you enjoy this time period, or just like history at all, I think there's some really cool stuff and some good performances to anchor it as well.
Yeah, and Johnny Flynn, I think, is definitely convincing as like the dashing soldier to be slash romantic object
Mhm.
of interest. And if that interests you, if you thought that worked in the dig, he's also in Emma as the romantic interest to Anya Taylor Joy's Emma. So check that out. He's pretty good in that one as well. Um, Also, just want to shout out, I'm a big fan of the British Museum. It's a lovely place to visit when you can do that if you're ever in London.